Hello there, I'm Sandy Allnock, and I bring you today a tale of 3 watercolor brushes that have been on my desk quite a bit lately. I'm painting through the month, 30 days of watercolor in April, and I'm using primarily these 3 brushes. There's a couple others that have slid in, and I have some more that I ordered that are on the way, but I will tell you about those in another video later. Today I wanted to show you how I painted this flooring, as well as how I painted these bricks and how you can do rocks in general. So let's get started. Out of dozens and dozens of brushes that I have, these 3 have just been on my desk quite a bit. And I wanted to show you all 3 of them and how I use them in watercolor painting. A small synthetic, a medium-sized round, and a large mop. And there's all kinds of ones you can fit in between, but I find that I use these 3 the most lately. These daisies were painted in my last video. If you want to go see that, links in the doobly-doo. Warning, it's a bit long, about a half an hour, but it does cover a lot of great information. For flooring, if you're doing tiles like I showed in that painting, you would do the horizontals horizontally and then make all of your intermediate lines, whether they're even tiles like this or if they're broken up the way they were in that painting, they would all fan out so that you get a dimensional view. But this view is basically as if you're looking at it from where you're sitting, where you're standing. So you're looking down on the flooring. If you want it to look like you're kind of sitting on the floor with your camera down low, taking a picture of, say, that bucket of flowers, you want the angles to be more extreme instead of being kind of soft angles. Let me show you what that looks like and how I mean that. So you're going to have them wider. You're basically increasing the drama of this by lowering the vantage point that you're looking at it from. So this is more like you're looking at it from lower down than earlier with those lines that just had a little bit of gentle angle to them. So then we have some bricks. I'm just going to do a quick row of bricks. And then since I have an empty hole on my page, I'll just do a rock by itself. So if you're painting a boulder in a garden, like we're doing in the 30 Days to More Confident watercolor class, then this might help you for that. So I'm going to start off with 2 main colors for all of this, which is going to be a French Ultramarine blue and transparent Red Oxide. Try any of your blues, any of your browns, and combine them to see what happens. Add a little bit more blue or a little bit more brown to change the color. And I'm going to do multiple colors on the tiles for this one. And I'm going to just pick one to start with. And I'm using the big fat brush. This is a mop brush, so it holds tons of water and tons of paint. If I want to put less of that water and paint on, I can dab it off real quickly and get a completely different color. So you can control how much is actually in a brush like that by expelling the excess or add more water to it if you want to keep that moisture and just start using lighter color. So I'm going to add another row of tiles here just to increase the drama as well. The distance between all those horizontals should get smaller as it gets into the distance. With something like a floor that's not like the urgent main part of your painting, you can really not stress out about trying to make it look perfect, but just make it look like it's at the same angle as whatever it is you're painting in the rest of the picture. Because you don't want your floor to be off and look like everything's going to slide off of the picture because it's too steep of an angle. So I added some blue to my paint mix, and that turned it into a gray. And you can add a lot of blue, you can add a little blue. The French Ultramarine blue has the added benefit of having granulation to it. And it granulates wonderfully when it's in mixes of color. It granulates when it's in thin mixes and in thick mixes. Just kind of does some cool things. Now here's where I'm going to start putting some of the tiles next to each other. I'm going right up close to the edge and just touching it to a corner of one of the tiles that's already there. If I've got too much moisture and I'm too worried about it running away, then just dab some off, use that thirsty brush, because this brush is very thirsty, and it'll pull in any excess moisture. And then I'm just going to let them bleed together. And just slightly, not a ton. You can let it dry a little bit more if you've got some, like that center one right there that's really puddly. It's going to want to run because it's very, very puddly. Others will run a little bit less. And you can just let them dry a little bit if you've got way too much moisture than you're comfortable with. But I find that this technique works great to make something look like it's got these cool vintage tiles on it. You can make them staggered, so they don't have to be real regular patterns of tiles like this, but it is just really cool. So I'm touching it strategically to a couple of different tiles around it, each one, just to let them mix inconsistently. I don't want every single one to mix in the lower left corner, for instance. I want them to kind of bounce around and enjoy each other's company, shall we say. So I'm going to mix a different color with a little more blue in it. And this one I painted right next to another tile that has blue already in it. So these are kind of the same color. So all I have to do is drop in some other mix of color. I can play around with dropping wet into wet in this as well and get all kinds of interesting looking tiles to create a floor that's not going to be the hero of the painting, but it's going to be interesting enough that it doesn't just look like you threw it in there and didn't think about what you were painting. You can add it as an extra element in something like the one that I did with the flowers on it. Notice that this big fat brush is still doing small areas. I'm not switching down to a smaller brush. And I've had painting instructors before who have told me you want to use the biggest brush you possibly can do for any use, because that's going to keep you looser. The more you tighten down in this phase, the more the whole thing is going to get tight. I'm going to show you how I use the other brushes so you can, get some other details in, but you don't have to always try at this stage to do that. You want to find a mop brush that's got a good point to it. A lot of the Da Vinci brushes do that really well. It's one of the things I like about this silver point brush. But when I was at the NAMTA show, and I took this brush with me so I could ask them some questions about it, and I'm in some conversations to learn more about this brush. I want to talk to the people that make it at the plant about it. But this brush just has some really nice pointing that it does. You can see I can get into small areas. Just because it's a big fat brush doesn't mean it's not going to point. So when you get a brush, if you have a store, hopefully, like when I first started buying my brushes and stuff, I was going to the store near me that had a Buddha board, and they would let you test out brushes with water on a Buddha board. But you really want to see, if at all possible, does it point well? And this particular brush does that. So I can squeeze into all these small areas and just play around with the colors. It's so much fun to just watch them touch each other and mix and bleed. And you can leave all of the white grout in there and it can look lovely, or you can paint in some details, which I'll do in the next phase of painting this sketch page. Now, for a big rock, I would usually typically start with a light color and then put down a shadow side, and then just use the side of my brush when the brush is a little bit on the dry side. So I dabbed off the excess water so I could lay the brush on its side and get that kind of scrubby dry brush sort of look, and then mix up some other colors to drop into it. The wet in wet is going to give me soft edges, and later on I can do some hard edges and get some stronger details in it. Again, it depends on whether or not your rock is the hero of your painting, and it's going to be a really big important thing, or if it's a supporting character, just do some quick brush strokes to make it look like a rock without, spending too much time detailing it. So let's talk about the bricks. Now, those are basically the same thing as the tiles, but they're going to be standing up on their side. I'm not going to leave a lot of white in these, so depending on how much white or light color you have in whatever it is that you're painting, if you want light highlights, you can leave that. But I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Just mix different kinds of browns and grays and just do a whole row of them. If you've got all the same color, then I would do the same thing. I would just keep painting bricks, leaving these little gaps in between them, and maybe make them just a little different value from one brick to the other, so they start feeling like different bricks. But then I'll dry the whole thing and get started on the detail additions. Now, when I'm doing something like bricks or tiles that are not the main focus of my painting, I don't usually do a ton of passes on it. For my main items, I often will, for plants and that sort of thing. But for this sort of thing, I want to keep as little attention on them as possible because they're supporting characters. So I don't want to go crazy with it. But I've got my small brush, and this is a number 2 round, and it's a synthetic, which means it's not going to be a really soft brush. It's not going to hold a lot. So I'm going to have to dip into my puddle quite a bit. But for a little detail like this, dipping back into the puddle is good because I can keep switching up the different colors because I've got so many colors in that puddle. And I can also dip into thicker or thinner paint, depending on whether I want something lighter or something darker. And I'm just adding some sketchy lines in here. I'm not going into trying to shadow anything and put shading on any of these tiles or anything. It's just trying to create a little bit of difference, a little separation here and there in a few spots. And I'm trying to leave some of those whites in there. And that's going to help that floor to stay very loose and very vintage looking, very old kind of tile floor without looking like it's overworked. Because if you try to use rulers and, make everything straight and you don't get any of that soft bleeding and kind of wiggly lines, you don't end up with something that looks like a fresh watercolor. And that's what I'm trying for in this month that I'm doing all watercolor paintings every day over at Art Venture and working my way through my own 30 Days to More Confident Sketching class. I'm trying to just revisit my own skills when it comes to these kinds of paintings and grow my skills in getting loose. Now for this rock, I'm using the small brush to try to create some dry brush. I can do it with a bit of lighter color. I can do it with darker color. Depending on your brush, you may find you have less or more ability to do dry brush. But dry brush is basically, pressing the ferrule. Sometimes I press the ferrule, not all the time, but pressing from the ferrule to the tip of the brush on its side and letting it just kind of skip across the surface. And that will create that kind of dry brush look. You can do it at various levels of value. So it might be really crisp and strong. And when you've got things like bricks in that one painting that had a whole row of bricks in a garden, they may have some really deep darks in between each of the bricks or the rocks. So you'll need some dark color. These two colors that I'm using here are going to actually work really well to make a near black color. And if you mix them really, really thick, you can get an actual black. But I like using the mix of colors that's already in the bricks rather than trying to add a black to it. Sometimes I'll add a little Payne's Blue Gray, especially if I'm in a hurry. But mixing French Ultramarine Blue with a burnt sienna or a transparent red oxide will make a dark color. And it's going to be a dark color that relates to the thing you're already painting as opposed to adding a new color to it. So I'm doing some dry brush work over top of some of the front area of the bricks and just making it nice and uneven so it looks like, these are crumbly old types of rocks or bricks. If you've got, again, white highlights that you need in them, or if you're doing really light bricks, then you can use a yellow ochre wash for the first wash and then add different kinds of textures over top of it. But again, if you need darker values, just mix darker or thicker bits of the blue and the brown together. That's going to give you a really nice crisp dark that you can give some super depth to particular areas, especially in corners at the bottom or corners in between bricks or rocks, because that's usually where you're going to get your deepest shadows. Now, kind of fuss around with that until it looks like what I want it to look like. Now, I also like splatters. And while sometimes I'll use my number 8 brush in painting stuff like this, I also, may not. I might save it for just things like doing splatters. This particular brush I wouldn't buy just for splatters. It does paint well as well. But I covered up the rest of the painting. You can put a piece of paper or a paper towel or something over the rest of your painting to just get some splatters on whatever rock elements that you're trying to paint. And you can dab some off, and then you get sort of these, kind of light gray stains on some of the rocks. It just gives you some really interesting character to them. And it works better in my mind than trying to paint dots in them, because your hand tends to make regular shapes, the same sizes. It's just the way human nature is. We try to do the same thing over and over again. And splatters helps them to just be random, which is great. Now, if you're working on a rock like this and you suddenly realize, I need to just tone that rock down, it's got too much detail, then it's real easy to have one of these very light colors, a light wash of the same colors, and just go right over top of everything. You'll have just a bit of color added on and see all of the work that you did already underneath. So you get that scrubby looking rock without all of it being quite so dramatic and quite so contrasty, which can make it look a whole lot better. I hope this video has helped you to understand a little more about watercolor, a little more about how I use my brushes, because that's my goal here, is to help you learn more. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to my channel. I do watercolor, pencil, markers, all different kinds of mediums. And there's another view of the tile floor, and this is that brick wall, and it's got a lot more dry brush in it, so you can do a lot or you can do a little. If you're interested in any of the supplies, from the colors to the paper to the brushes, they're all linked in the doobly-doo. And if you haven't yet, please do hit the like button, because that really helps the channel out so more people will get to see these videos and learn from them. If you want to join in on the 30 Days to More Confident Watercolor Sketching class, you can join in anytime, but specifically during April, a bunch of us at Art Venture are going through the class together. So a little camaraderie as you slog through your 30 days. You can start anytime. A bunch of people started April 1st, and they're still on April 2nd. So no worries, work at your own pace. And I will see you in a couple of days. In the meantime, just get out there and keep creating something every day. See you later.